Mr. Robot. While the show's protagonist Elliot Alderson hacks his friends, his psychiatrist, hospitals, and the FBI, series creator Sam Esmail hacks cinema, constantly borrowing from iconic films of the past. Esmail openly embraces the theft of his cinematic heroes, having said in a recent interview, "I'll say this right now, I rip off every movie and TV show I've ever seen in my life. I'm a film nerd, I make no apologies." At first glance, it may seem like Mr. Robot is just shamelessly ripping off other films.
I didn't know they actually made a mask from that movie, did you?
But what makes it different from dumpster fires like Atlantic Rim, Transmorphers, and Chop Kick Panda has to do with art theory. Tracing produces a poor version of the original. Collage creates something new entirely. Perhaps Mr. Robot could be called a mashup, a remix, an homage, or pastiche. Perhaps it's just plagiarism. But in a world where everything seems to be a copy of a copy of a copy, is there anything original left to steal?
I need a hit.
I need one more fucking H!
Welcome to this Wisecrack edition on the cinematic influences of Mr. Robot. Oh, and if you're hoping for a philosophy of episode, don't worry, we're working on it. Also, spoilers ahead. Fight Club. In many ways, Mr. Robot is a sort of digital update of Fight Club. Whereas Mr. Robot portrays the psychological struggles of the leader of a cyber-terrorist group, Fight Club plays in the analog world. The psychologically troubled protagonist and his cronies pick physical fights with Project Mayhem, covering car dealerships with bird poop and blowing up buildings. Project Mayhem prefers physical acts of terrorism, whereas F Society takes the fight to the new frontier, the web. Tyler is Cornelius, Rupert, Lenny, Jack.
I am Jack's complete lack of surprise.
He lives life as a single-serving friend. He travels and applies the risk formula. He is completely detached from the harsh reality of his work.
See where the fat's burned? See? Very modern art.
Elliot refers to himself as a regular cybersecurity engineer.
Employee number ER280652.
Reduced to pure object, to a cog in the corporate machine, Tyler and Elliot revolt against their working conditions and the conglomerates that create disposable populations as byproducts of a quest for profit.
Colby was in fact aware of the dangerous levels of toxicity and kept it a secret as it, quote, would not be cost effective even if there are potential lawsuits.
Elliot and Edward Norton's chatter with the camera both take on the same monotonous cadence of a broken down corporate stooge.
This spinning wheel of false highs and true lows will continue.
Dejected and disaffected by their meaningless work.
Everything's a copy of a copy of a copy.
F Society wants to erase debt by taking down a global conglomerate that is too big to fail. Along the way, they cut off the Charging Bull's balls and drop them through the roof of Congress. Project Mayhem is a terrorist group that wants to erase the world's debt by blowing up a bunch of buildings. Along the way, their members threaten to cut off human balls. There's the super obvious parallel, Elliot being Mr. Robot and Tyler being the nameless narrator, which is punctuated by Where's My Mind playing when Elliot meets Tyrell in the arcade. When Mr. Robot and Elliot fight in a coffee shop, it might as well be Brad Pitt and Edward Norton fighting all over town. Both share some serious God issues. Tyler chemical burns little kisses on the back of hands while ranting about the fact that God hates you.
To consider the possibility that God does not like you.
While Elliot thinks religion is just metastasizing mind worms set up to control the masses.
So fuck God. He's not a good enough scapegoat for me.
When Elliot shows up to work after getting pushed off the Coney Island pier, his conversation with Gideon is oddly close to Edward Norton's chat with his cornflower blue tie wearing boss about his smashed face and disheveled clothes.
Pretend you're me. You find this, what would you do?
You're missing work, you come in looking like that, and you expect me not to ask questions?
Edward Norton has a serious problem with sleep, and so does Elliot, after taking all the Adderall in the penitentiary. Like, all the Adderall.
These dishes look immaculate.
Both also share a need for healing, whether it's the testicular cancer support club that Tyler haunts, or the prison Bible study group that Elliot demolishes. More than just reference for reference sake, Mr. Robot and Fight Club are thematically intertwined. Both show the alienated white-collar worker. They explore the disconnected reality of living in a world where your worth is dictated by virtual production, and they both show it burned to the ground. The Matrix. Elliot Alderson is a computer hacker otherwise known as Mr. Robot. Thomas Anderson is a computer hacker otherwise known as Neo. Both work in a corporate wasteland of cubicles and dress codes. They both seem to be lacking purpose or direction in their lives until they're approached by a mysterious, enigmatic father figure. In the case of Mr. Robot, literally, I guess. Both are followed by men in black and stuffed into government-type vehicles, and both of them know Kung Fu. Wait, that's not right. While the Matrix is a computer system that obscures the reality of a world where people provide energy for artificial intelligence, Mr. Robot is about a world of mystification.
The world itself's just one big hoax.
Where everyday workers' social interactions, their social media presence, vices, and routines all hide the fact that the world we live in is a brutal place.
We all know why we do this, because it's painful not to pretend.
There is no Matrix, just the hidden reality of late modern corporate capitalism. In Mr. Robot, the Matrix isn't a literal alternate reality, it's the virtual world of money. The Matrix is a lot like the normal world that Elliot experiences when he thinks F Society is finished. When Steal My Sunshine plays and he decides that he's gonna be normal, asks Shayla to be his girlfriend, see Marvel movies, join a gym, heart things on Instagram, drink vanilla lattes, Elliot sort of lapses back into the Matrix, like Cypher blissfully eating a steak with Agent Smith. It is the commercial identity that is sold to people via social media and advertising.
Ignorance is bliss.
The very thing that Elliot hacks. The scene on the Ferris wheel between Elliot and Mr. Robot parallels the famous pill scene between Morpheus and Neo.
Let me tell you why you're really here.
Let me tell you why you're here.
You're here because you sense something wrong with the world.
There's something wrong with the world.
Something you can't explain.
What you know you can't explain, but you feel it.
You know it controls you and everyone you care about.
What are you talking about?
Like Neo, Elliot is also the one to bring about
The single biggest incident of wealth redistribution in history.
While Neo liberates the people from the Matrix, Elliot aims to free us from the crushing banality of our everyday lives. Oh, and massive student debt.
We are on the verge of taking down this virtual reality.
American Psycho. Wall Street exec Patrick Bateman is a nihilistic mess. He lives a life of absolute dissatisfaction. Tyrell Wellick is a clear reference to Bateman, the senior VP of technology at E-Corp.
You're fired!
While certain things are evidently similar to Bateman, like his workout routine and his random killing of Sharon Knowles on a roof, there are some more subtle references to American Psycho as well. For Tyrell, sex is simply a tactic to achieve an end. There's no enjoyment, no feeling. He reluctantly comes home and ties his wife up. For Bateman, it's just narcissistic gratification with prostitutes while he flexes and points at himself in the mirror. In season 1, Tyrell pays a homeless man to let him beat the hell out of him, which is reminiscent of the pain that Bateman puts prostitutes through, and, well, the homeless guy that Bateman stabs in front of the guy's dog. For both characters, people are merely a means to an end.
You're not terribly important to me.
No more valuable than their dress shirts or business cards. There is no intimacy, only transactions.
You're a strange creature.
I'm just a businessman.
Taxi Driver. Much like American Psycho and Fight Club, Taxi Driver is a brief snippet of a person's descent into madness and their motivation for attempting to change their current miserable existence. Both Elliot and Travis Bickle are social outcasts consumed by grief and loneliness. They both talk to their imaginary friend.
Hello, friend.
You talking to me?
Travis and Elliot are fed up with the status quo. Travis, a Vietnam vet, is disgusted by the animals that come out at night, the pushers, whores, dopers, and Elliot is pissed at a society that believes that Steve Jobs is a great man. He loathes bullshit commentary and fake social media intimacy. Elliot and Travis both write in their handy-dandy notebooks and are both utterly lonely. They've got big city problems, the creeping cosmopolitan type of alienation that comes from being one person among 10 million.
I hate when I can't hold in my loneliness.
Travis says that loneliness has followed me my whole life, everywhere, in bars, in cars, sidewalks, stores, everywhere. There's no escape.
God's a lonely man.
Travis rants to Betsy about how she is a lonely person, about how something is missing in her life.
I saw in your eyes and I saw the way you carried yourself that you're not a happy person.
And this is neatly mirrored by Elliot's conversation with Krista and her struggles with loneliness.
You're lonely.
Let's face it, they're both weird dudes that zone out a lot. If the 70s creepy worker was a cabbie, the millennial version is a cybersecurity tech guru. The violence in Mr. Robot is also quite similar. Travis and Elliot both use their imaginations to shoot themselves in the head. Perhaps it reveals their suicidal drive and self-hatred, or perhaps it's a commentary that revolutionary figures have to be prepared to accept the consequences of their actions. Fernando Vara is the modern update of Matthew, aka Sport. Instead of pimping, Vara flips scripts. The first time Vara is introduced, he's manhandling Shayla by a car. The first time Sport is introduced, he's pulling Iris out of the back of Travis's cab. While Vara doesn't get killed, yet, there is an interesting inversion. At the end of Taxi Driver, Sport gets killed, and in the middle of season 1, Shayla gets killed instead. Natural Born Killers. Natural Born Killers focuses on our fascination with the spectacular violence of our media-driven environment. While it may not be a major theme of Mr. Robot, there is some parallel commentary. When an E-Corp EVP commits suicide, the close-up of the camera is a reminder that this spectacle is for viewing pleasure. But nowhere is the connection to Natural Born Killers more clear than in Season 2. After Elliot is beaten to hell by Ray's boys, he wakes up in some sort of twisted episode of Full House / Alf.
I killed me!
This scene is essentially the same as the I Love Mallory scene in Natural Born Killers, a sitcom parody with a laugh track and overt domestic violence. What the audience experiences isn't Elliot's life or Mallory's life, it's life as television, as events remembered and filtered through a 1980s Technicolor dream. Between the random changes in color, constant flashbacks, cartoons, and random images everywhere, it's clear that the point of view of Natural Born Killers is skewed by the warped perspectives of Mickey and Mallory. The viewer receives the film through their psychotic lens. This is by no means unique to Natural Born Killers, but both properties use similar techniques to communicate distorted thinking. In Mr. Robot, the audience is Elliot's imaginary friend. What we see and hear is entirely manipulated by Elliot, whether it be changing E-Corp to Evil Corp, or expertly hiding the fact that an entire season is actually taking place in jail. The world that the viewer is allowed to glimpse is only what Elliot permits. Conclusion. At a time when everyone seems to be making remake after remake, Mr. Robot simply samples.
Come on, you never seen JFK? Oliver Stone movie?
Instead of regurgitating another lifeless revamp, Mr. Robot offers a carefully sly remix. The excessiveness of it, the constant riffing, lifting, and stealing, seems to make it okay, as if to say, if there's nothing new under the sun, fuck it. It's okay to stick with what you love. Perhaps Mr. Robot is an attempt to reconnect, to build on classic tropes in order to reclaim some sense of familiarity in an increasingly alienating world.
Louis? I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
A sort of nostalgic rerun that we, Elliot's imaginary friend, have the privilege to view.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Perhaps watching Mr. Robot is like being on a great pop culture inside joke.
You wanna watch your favorite movie?
Or perhaps it's just theft.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching and for all the love in the comments. As always, a great way to support the show is by supporting our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Audible. Audible has an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, comedy, news, and much more. So go to audible.com/8bit to start a free 30-day trial. And when you sign up, pick any book you want, download it for free, and it's yours to keep forever. If you're looking for a recommendation and want to take a deeper dive into one of the works we've talked about in this video, check out Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. For more about Audible and to start your 30-day free trial with a free audiobook, go to audible.com/8bit to sign up. And remember, we're working on a Philosophy of Mr. Robot episode, so squash this Evil Corp logo here to visit our channel page and subscribe to be notified when it's released. Okay, I gotta run. I gotta go work on the next Wisecrack edition, which is focused on a particular celebrity. Let's just say he's not really famous anymore.